got to remember your superpowers, right? Your creativity. These are two awesome heroes from Mexico. There's a lot of them. These are two that are especially important to me. I want you to think about what are some values that you have as a Mexican or from wherever you're from, right? That really can help you drive your creativity and help you influence other people in other countries. Super important. Again, I think Mexico has some things that Canada and the US and everywhere else does not have. Especialmente porque es mi primera vez hablando en México. Solo hablo en Norteamérica, pues en Canadá, y pues aprendí un poco del español porque nací aquí, pero a los 4 años me mudé a Vancouver. Entonces, Vancouver, Canadá, es que se dediqué toda mi vida, entonces voy a hacer la presentación en inglés porque ya sé que estamos aquí aprendiendo más inglés. Pero si tienen cualquier pregunta, si quieren preguntar en español porque no les vienen las palabras en inglés, está bien. Yo, lo mejor que yo pueda responder en Spanglish. Okay. Perfecto. Well, let's turn the page to speaking English, shall we? Very good. Okay. So today's talk is about finding your spark. It's about finding your spark when you're in the dark. And it's my analogy, mi analogía, that when you are evolving through your careers, right, you don't have clarity on what's going to happen tomorrow in your job or in your studies. It's dark. It's completely dark, right? And the only way you're going to illuminate the darkness comes from within. You've got to have a passion, a spark, and that chispa, no? Something that helps you wake up in the morning. You want to go to school. You want to go to work. It's difficult sometimes, but you have to find it. That's something that took me a long time to find, but eventually I did find it, and it's something very important that you may already have it right now, but I think that spark continues to grow over time as you decide what things you like and what things you don't. And I think both are equally important. Knowing what you don't like helps you focus more on what you do like. Got it? Okay, cool. So jumping in, a bit about me. So I have a very confusing background. Yes, I'm Mexican, but I have, a grandpa from Romania, Bulgaria, Syria, Turkey. I haven't even been to any of those places beyond Mexico, so I still have a lot of traveling to do. I think I'm Mexican as well. So as I was saying before, I was born here, and I moved at age 4 to Vancouver. Anyone been to Canada or Vancouver? Yeah? A lot of Mexicans go to Vancouver, actually. Great place. I went to University of British Columbia, which is, of course, the province which Vancouver is within. And I studied marketing and international business. And from within my studies, which I'll tell you throughout the presentation, my studies gave me a direct link to my career. And sometimes it's hard to see how what you study. I've got 3 different companies. There's one main company called Tangled, which Marta presented, and that was actually how I found my spark. I found my spark through Tangled, which is a digital agency. It didn't start that way, and you guys will see through the story. And that was the spark to create 2 other companies that are actually very focused on education. So we'll go back to the topic of how education, a teacher, can actually be more than just a teacher. And that's something I'm very passionate about. I think when you're running a few different companies and you're busy with your studies, you've got to stay mindful, no? So I'm always proud to talk about how I've done 1,000 days straight of meditation. Anyone here meditate? Is this like a North American thing? Okay, we see in the corner. It's starting to come in Mexico. I highly recommend it. It takes a lot of practice, and if you want to talk to me about it, happy to share my experiences. I've been lucky enough to write about my experiences on magazines like Forbes. So I guess I didn't start like this. It really was a really tough journey, especially coming to Mexico when I was age 4 and I didn't speak any English, like really nothing. So, go to the next slide. That's me in the front. Much less stylish than my brother in the back. Shoes, a jumpsuit. Clearly fashion wasn't my forte, or at least my parents didn't give me the fashion I needed. But this is actually a really interesting photo. I actually uncovered it very recently. And it's us in the car going to the Mexican airport to move to Canada. This is like my last moment as a Mexican, at least temporarily, right? And you can see that I'm very easy to bribe because a whole bunch of toys they gave me, which clearly distracted me, and I then woke up in Canada, and well, that's where our story begins. But I moved at the age of 4, and as I was saying before, it wasn't really a very easy transition because when you go to Canada, there's a few things, right? There's not a stereotypes about Mexicans. It's true, there's stereotypes, right? Some are good, some aren't so good, and when you're like 5, 6 years old and you're around a bunch of what we call mocosos, no? They're just gonna say stuff to you, right? And I felt like, especially with me, I'm pretty hyper, let's say, so I guess I had ADHD, right? And someone who's ADHD, really hyper, doesn't speak English, easy target, right, for people in Canada being like, who's this guy? So anyways, I was a bit misunderstood. It wasn't until, I think I was one teacher in grade 6 who saw the craziness in me and said, maybe there's a way to funnel that energy in a productive direction, right? And it was actually her that made a huge impact on building my confidence, because it's all about confidence, and for the people in the room here that are trained to be teachers, it's especially important that you can make that impact on that one crazy kid, right? And that was what I got from, when I was in Canada. So I'm very grateful for people that are studying the profession of being a teacher, because I think it's really, really important to just give you that first win, that first, okay, I'm accepted, now what? And then the momentum begins. So that was really important for me. But yeah, it wasn't an easy transition, and also for my parents, they had to start from scratch. That's a different story. So, in the next 35 minutes or so, and I do want to leave time for questions, so maybe at the back, when we get to, let's say, 11:30 and then 11:40, just maybe put your hand up so I can kind of time things. I do want to make sure that I can answer some questions if there are any. But there's 3 things that I think are going to be worth your attention for the next 30 minutes or so. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is how to find your spark. I alluded to that, right? It's how to find your G-spot, something that really gets you excited. And you're going to need that through, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need that every day, because there's a lot of sad moments and scary moments of being an entrepreneur. If you're a teacher, if you're working any job you're working now, and you find there's dull moments, boring moments in your job, or things you don't like about your job, you've got to find your spark and have an attitude towards doing your job in a way that eventually gets you towards where you want to go. So really, really important, and again, it took me a long time to figure out. It just kind of happened. And I think there's a formula to actually get there. And I want to propose that to everyone in the room. Secondly, is you narrow down your career path, which is really important, right? And I'm still narrowing down my career path. We're always thinking of new ideas at my companies. I think it's really important to understand how you do that. And a lot of it is, there's the expression, no pain, no gain. You guys know that? Very true, unfortunately. Not physical pain, hopefully, but there's a lot of emotional pain that comes through, trying different things. And I really think that as much as universities and schools are important, I do think a lot of them miss the point of giving you actual practical experience, getting you outside of the classroom to see what the real world's like. Because what you get taught in school sometimes, right? I don't know about the curriculum here, but I'm sure you're a lot more progressive here. But generally speaking, you learn a lot by doing, through jobs, through co-ops, through volunteering. Those are really important things that I'm going to tie towards finding your spark and really helping you decide where you want to go. And lastly, we're going to talk about the modern day educator, right? So again, when you say teacher or educator, you think of someone in a classroom just talking and banging on the whiteboard. In my perspective, not the case at all. The skills you're building right now, of course, can be used for teaching, and teaching in a very progressive way, but also they can be used in business. And that's something that I find I'm doing a lot of now as I'm educating, which I think is really interesting. And I didn't realize it until quite recently, so excited to share that. And let's jump in. Hopefully my clicker works. Cool. Okay. So one thing I'm really excited to talk about, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts. I know there's a bit of like, what is that? Something that I think Mexico has, or especially Hispanic countries that no other place has, are certain values. As much as I love Canada, I mean, it's a great place to live, right? It's just like this perfect, clean place, and kind of cold sometimes. So, but one thing I found that they lack, and I think they still lack, is spice. They lack culture in some ways, right? They lack, fiesta. They lack things they lack a certain humor that I see in Mexico that I don't see there. People are very serious in some ways, right? So I think that what we have here in Mexico especially is this culture that people love. Especially when I saw the movie Coco. I don't know if you saw it. I thought it was really cool. I almost became like a prouder Mexican because I realized that our culture is so strong and people really do love it, right? So I think we're getting a lot more popularity in the world. Mexico is, and I think especially the values that you have are strengths. And when I went to Canada when I was 4 years old, these are, I guess, values I didn't even really think about. And I don't think Canada saw them as good things. And I think recently that's changing. So you guys have what we call a competitive advantage, especially if you travel throughout the world. So keep that in mind. Things that especially are really near and dear to me are culture, food, of course, connection. I think those are all things that Mexico does really well. I want to open up the floor for like 2 seconds. Does anyone want to talk about a value of being Mexican that's not on there? Or maybe a value that is on there that you are especially proud of? Is there anyone that wants to be brave and volunteer to make a value more? Surely there's one that I missed that's not on there.
I think we're very ingenious.
Ingenious. Do you want to explain that more?
Yeah, certainly. Many companies have found Mexicans are very imaginative in finding ways to solve a same problem. So, for instance, car companies, yeah, they love Mexico because sometimes we don't have the parts, we lack the parts to fix a car, but then we come up with this crazy solution which involves anything and take. And it works.
Yeah.
So we're very ingenious.
Yeah, and it's something that I guess we would also call is resourcefulness. You're very resourceful. And it's something that I also see in the country of Israel. I've been there a couple times, and they're also very resourceful. They've got no real natural resources, so I think, yeah, it's a great point and super important. Awesome, thank you for that. What's your name?
George.
Thank you, George. Cool. So let's do a little bit of a flashback. This is me in Barcelona. Has anyone been to Spain or Barcelona? Yes. I hear a couple yeses, a couple nods. Great. Magical place. Truly a magical place. This is actually me in 2010, and it was the first time I had left Canada for an extended period of time, not on a vacation, since I moved out of Mexico. So it was my first time being reconnected with my Hispanic roots, right? And I thought it was really interesting because once I was in a different environment, especially a place that had values similar to the ones that I always had, some interesting things started to happen. So, firstly, I had the freedom to be myself, right? There's nobody judging me. There's nobody, saying stuff to me. Nobody, looking at my every move. I was by myself in Spain. I could do whatever I wanted. My parents wouldn't know about it. Nobody would know about it. I could do whatever I wanted. And yes, I did party a lot. And it was great. It was great. Come on. So I think it's really important. It's going somewhere where you can really just be yourself. And you can do it here, of course, as well. But when you're somewhere far away, there's something that it gives you, of course, right? I found that I opened myself up to new perspectives. So I met a lot of interesting people. This is a study abroad exchange. It was 4 months, right? I met a lot of Spanish people, international folks. And again, I saw the world a little differently through some of their values. And I also found that being in Barcelona, I had different sensations. Like literally, I felt different. Something about the air in Barcelona just felt different. And they're very well known for their architecture, of course. Magical place, right? So I felt that when I was there, it was easy to not be on my phone. These are the days of BlackBerry, which I know sounds ancient, but these are the days of BlackBerry, BBM, right? And I found that I could just connect with people better. I could connect with the city because it was so beautiful. There's just so much it's so much better to be present than be on my phone, right? But of course that's the fact in any place, but I especially felt it there. And that's when I started getting passionate about, well, why aren't people more present with what's around them? Why aren't they more present with the people directly in front of them? I think it's still a problem, obviously, with technology, but I really felt it there, and I got passionate about, well, how can I start to get behind that brand and that idea? So, right when I was thinking that, we were actually in this, I did study from time to time, and there was a classroom called brand management. It's like managing a brand. Como crear una marca, no? So when I was there, they told us, if you want to start a company, who wants to start a company one day? Product. Who has a product now? An Amazon store, anything? Hands up. Any ambitions to be on the crazy side with me at some point? Okay, cool. We got at least one crazy people have raising their hand. So anyways, they told us to build a company. Here's the question. Do you build a product first and then put a brand on it? Right? Or do you build a brand and a product? I didn't know what the answer was. And what they told us was, well, you build a brand first, and the brand has to stand for something. So I talked about real world experiences and learning by doing, and they told us, how about this? I'm going to give you 500 euros. Real money. Take it for you and your team. You guys have to think of a brand that stands for something. You've got to put it in a product, and you have to go sell it around Barcelona in 4 months. And if you lose your money, you're not going to pass the class. So it better work. If you make profit, hey, you got a good grade, and maybe that can be an idea you take somewhere else. I thought that was exciting. A little scary, let's be honest, but exciting, so we did it. And the brand was called Tango at the time, or Tangu, right? And it was the idea of having a tango dance with someone. Did anyone dance here? I mean, everyone in Mexico kind of dances, right? But it's like having a tango dance where you're present with someone, right? There's a one-to-one connection, and you're moving in the same direction. That was the analogy, right? It's how do we get people in the real world to tango with each other? Just to be present. That was the brand. And then we took that brand and we attached it to a product. And the product at the time was a watch and a bracelet, which sounds really abstract, right? But that's all we could afford with a 500 euro investment, right? So it was like t-shirts, bracelets, watches. We're going to do the bracelets and watches. And the whole concept was that you would buy the watch and give to someone that you value spending time with or tangoing with. Girlfriend, a loved one, a family member, whatever you wanted. And then you would keep the bracelet, the wristband right here actually. And this would be an infinite connection between you and the person you want to tango with. Kind of cheesy, I know, but it works. And it was my first time that I could connect a spark or something I was really passionate about with a product. And I never really made that connection. I thought that was really, really important to see how that came together. So after that, we did quite well. We sold all our watches and bracelets, thank God. We did well in the class. And then I went back to Canada, basically. And I want to talk about a concept, which is another way of thinking of your spark. Who here watches TED Talks? Pretty inspiring. I'm sure they have TEDx Mexico and TEDx Cuernavaca. Do they have TEDx Cuernavaca? No. Okay, someone's got to start that. So this guy on the right, does anyone know who that is?
Yeah, they're like conferences.
Sorry?
They're like motivational speakers.
Yeah, exactly. TED is like international. Actually, Vancouver has the TED Global conference there, but TEDx is like a little franchise where you can have your own version of it. That's Simon Sinek. He has a really famous talk about finding your why. You guys should look it up later. Simon Sinek, Finding Your Why. And he argues that people don't buy what companies sell. They buy why they sell them. Example, Apple. Yes, the products are good, maybe getting worse over time, but you buy the idea behind it. It's living life in a simple, sleek way. It's thinking differently. You buy why they build the product. I think it's a very important distinction. When you're selling watches and wristbands, there's millions of different watches and wristbands, but it was the story on why we sold those watches and wristbands that people like. So that idea of people they don't buy what you have. Of course, it's important, but it's why you do it. I think it's a very important thing to talk about. And this is when I found my why, my spark. And it was to ignite a spark in people through a memorable experience and through connecting people in a memorable way. that's the way that I realized what I really cared about is making people be present with each other. And there's different ways to do it, right? For me, it happened through an experience of being in Barcelona. It happened through an experience of being in a team. And it happened through an experience of being connected with the right people. And that was kind of the mission of, well, really, that's kind of my mission right now. It still stands true to this day, right? And actually, what's ironic is that what we're doing right now, at least my goal of today, is my spark is to help you find your spark. That's my goal. That's what I realized in 2010, and that hasn't changed. So when you have a spark, and I know you've probably seen, you work at a company, you see mission statement, you see values. A lot of it's what we call lip service. People don't believe it. It's just words on a wall. Who really cares, right? Like, it sounds kind of cheesy. I never really believed in these things, but after I found my why, I started doing an exercise of actually writing down my personal mission statement. Like, if I'm a company, what do I stand for? And what are my values? What are things that I really care about? And these are all things that I didn't just make up one day. Over time, as I make really tough decisions, as I get into situations that are really uncomfortable, but I find a way to persevere, as I observe things in the world, I kind of constantly build and recalibrate, is the fancy word of saying, update my values. And I think that as you go out into the world, you're not going to know all these, although you have some right now for sure. Spend a half hour to do this. I promise you it'll be a useful exercise. And when you get to a job where there's a tough decision to make, because right, there's so many different decisions you have to make on a daily basis. When you get into an uncomfortable situation, when you get into a challenge, these are the things that help you see the light within the darkness. And there's a lot of boring stuff you have to do on a daily basis, let's face it, right? So you've got to have an attitude, and you've got to see where you're going. What's that guiding post to help you get to where you want to go? That's the thing that I really rely on. The rest is just being present and living life and, hopefully having some luck on the things that you do. So we're going to flash back again to my story. To remember, I was in Barcelona with this amazing project, and then I came back to Canada. Love Canada, but I was super bored. I was like, in Barcelona, running this company, and I'm back at school. Hey, love school, but, I was a little bit inquieto, as they say, right? I wanted to do something. So this concept is about bridging different worlds together. So I had the world of being abroad and living in Barcelona, and then I had the world of my school, my university. I had the world of, actually, there's a famous media company in Canada that was still small at the time called Daily Hive. And through me being in Barcelona and building, let's say, a personal brand of traveling and, going in fiesta, one of my colleagues, or I guess one of my schoolmates, said to me, Paul, you seem like you're all about culture and, Latin values. I have these guys I know, they run this up-and-coming media publication, and they're looking for someone to help them spice up the city, because Vancouver's a really beautiful place. It doesn't really have the life that, it's not like Mexico or Barcelona. So we want to find a way for people to discover their city in a more fun way, kind of like discovering new restaurants. We don't know how we're going to do it, but if you want to partner with us, let's see what we can do. I said, okay, sounds good. And then from there, what we basically developed was an idea where we helped you decide what restaurants to go to on a given night. Not just one restaurant, but 2 or 3. The idea was to discover new restaurants, not have to plan anything, and just pay once. So you pay once, and you go to the first venue, you have appetizers. And you have a text message that says, hey, time to go to the next place. And you go there for dinner, and you go somewhere for dessert, and it's you and your date or you and your friends, and it's just like, there's no thinking involved, right? It was a very easy way to discover the city. We thought it was kind of cool. We tested it out, and we got a lot of press around it. There's a lot of, I got to go on TV, go on newspapers, scary at first, eventually we got used to it. And suddenly, I bridged these 2 very abstract worlds together. Really, the values of Tangu, if you think about it. What's Tangu about? Connecting people. What do restaurants do to connect people? So I was able to, again, transform that idea and that brand of being Barcelona to Canada, which I didn't think would be possible until we did. So here we were. I started really my first company. My first real company was this event company. And I want to just have a key takeaway here. And firstly, you guys know who Elon Musk is?
Yes.
The guy who builds Tesla cars and SpaceX, and pretty famous. If you don't know about him, Google him later. He's pretty impressive. That's his ex-wife. And I'll paraphrase what the quote says. The shooting says that you you have to become a master of two worlds. You learn this from Elon Musk, right? Where you can string together different things so you have a competitive advantage. And what it says here is that you want to create a competitive advantage where you're between worlds. You can move between worlds, so between Mexico, Canada, or what you're studying here and what you're doing at work. And you can speak both languages, connect the different tribes, so the different groups, mash the elements to spark fresh creative insights until you wake up with the epiphany that changes your life. So you wake up one day and it clicks. That will happen as you mix together worlds. And that was exactly what I was doing indirectly. And those are things that you can do as well. And I thought it was a really wise quote. So I guess some things for you to think about as you go to different worlds and different things you do on a daily basis. For example, where have you worked or volunteered, right? And when you go work or volunteer somewhere, you learn things, right? You have insights. You also see flaws in maybe the way your boss manages you or the way your product is run. And you have certain things that you observe. So think about those things, because those are things that perhaps you can invent something around, right? So when you travel somewhere, think of an experience where something changed your perspective on the world, whether it was a kid that you met, a friend that you met, something you observed. Those are all things that help you combine your world and your values. And, a big question for everyone in the room today especially is, what can Mexico and somewhere that you visited learn from each other? I already told you, Canada can learn a lot from Mexico, and I think Mexico can learn a lot from the quality of life in Canada. And I think there's definite ways to bridge that. But those are things that help you, again, combine these worlds. So it's a really key takeaway is think about worlds that you can combine, either today or in the future. So, back to the story. We had this awesome new event company. We got all this press. And then, at the time, I realized that to stay motivated, I had to assign myself my own homework. I was done school now. So, I discovered pretty quickly that when you give yourself a very scary homework, like presenting in front of people at a certain date, it makes you work harder and be more accountable, right? So, what I did was I signed up for a contest to present my startup. Startup is like a company that's just kind of in the early stages, right? And as an entrepreneur, emprendedor, right? I signed up to present in front of 300 investors. People that, inversionistas, people that have more gray hair than I do, and they invest, and they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and pretty smart people, way smarter than me. And also there's going to be media people at this event, periodistas, everything. And I had to present my idea in front of them. And what I realized 24 hours before the presentation was I had no idea what I was going to tell them. I looked at the events, and as much as I loved them, I realized there's a lot of flaws with the events. I mean, it would have been nice to realize this earlier than 24 hours before a presentation, but there's something about time limits that really make you think critically. So what happened was really interesting. So I challenged myself, and then what I did is I became vulnerable, right? I told a lot of people in my office who were not on my team, guys, I'm in trouble. I've got this huge pitch tomorrow, and I don't know what to say because I don't think the current business model is something that the investors will care about. And I was right. I said, Paul, well, if you're open to feedback, we have some ideas. And then overnight, literally 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., we were reconstructing the entire company. By the way, my team was asleep. I did this without them. So I was there rebuilding my company with people that were complete outsiders. And we realized that the events were a great way to bring people together. I only ran the events once a month. If you can't make the event, then you can't enjoy our service. But what about putting the events in your pocket? Meaning that if you have a phone and you like to download apps like Yelp or Google Maps and you want to discover restaurants around you to go with your friends and to connect, well, isn't that more convenient than having to wait for my event once a month, right? So we built an app. And we called it a Pocket Concierge. And right now, the app wasn't built. We literally wrote it on the back of a napkin and said, we're going to do an app that helps you find restaurants based off your mood. Como te sientes, right? So, I have a first date. Where do I go? I want to go out with the boys for some Coronas. Where do I go? I feel like some are romantic. So it's more mood-based, right? How you feel versus like finding a restaurant that has 4 stars or 3 stars or whatever. It's finding a place that fits an experience that you want to have. And that's something that we didn't see in the market. If you guys use Spotify or what used to be called Songs Up, it's all finding music based off how you feel, right? So we were doing that for restaurants, which I thought was brilliant, and it was really cool. People were really excited about it. So I pitched this the next day, and miraculously, out of 15 different teams, we actually won. Like there were teams that had raised $1 million, and we still beat them, which I was shocked about. I thought I was like, okay, that's overkill. But anyways, that's us on the right. We won. We were super happy. On the left is our first investor check, so people started investing money in us. We're on top of the world here. Come on, we just won a competition. Pretty awesome. And I think, and you'll hear about why that wasn't so awesome in the end. But the key point of this slide is that when you do find a winning moment, like a winning moment where you really feel like excited, and it's related to what you do as a profession, it's a feeling you have to remember, because when things get tough, this is what we call a dopamine high that you have to seize onto, because there's very few moments like this in your entrepreneurial journey. Really in life, right? There's few glorious moments, but when you have them, you've really got to latch onto them. So here's just our product, as you can see it. And the app is still around, by the way. If you have an iPhone, you can download it. It's only really active in Canada right now, but if somebody wants to help me open in Mexico, I'm open. So that's the app, and we're going to actually rewind things a bit of a little small history lesson. So William Isaac Thomas, someone who created the concept of self-actualization. Has anyone ever heard that term, or anyone here studied psychology? Okay. Well, I hadn't really known any of this until I realized I was doing it. So a self-fulfilling prophecy is when you predict you're going to be doing something, right? So when we built our app, we're like, all right, we're gonna build this app one day, and we're actually gonna build it, and it's gonna be something people like. At the moment, we hadn't done it, so we had predicted we would get there. And we told everyone, we pitched in front of 300 people, Paul, you better as heck build it, because people are expecting it now. So the theory goes that if you have a belief in something you're going to do, you start to actually work towards it. It's kind of like setting goals. So this is a concept that I think is really important. I think that you can start doing today. And believe it or not, you will start making decisions, what we call micro decisions, to help you get to that. So that's something we started doing. I think it's very important to think about. And think about when you launch a product, or even when you launch like a curriculum, right? You have to make curriculum for your students. This is a quote I really like, because it's about not being a perfectionist. And when we realize how much work it is to build an app, it's going to take us almost a year to build. I wasn't going to build it. I had my technicians who were going to build the app. So I was extremely bored. And what we realized is that, what he says here is that if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, whether it's a curriculum or it's a product, it's too late. And what he means is that you've got to launch things quickly, be okay with it being kind of ugly, and then getting people's feedback, and then building it better versus procrastinating, right, and making it perfect. Really key thing for not just products, but also curriculum. So keeping that in mind, we remember the concept of giving ourselves really scary homework with a deadline. There's a show called Dragon's Den. Has anyone heard about it? It's kind of like Shark Tank, if you guys watch that in the US. Yeah, so this is the Canadian version. Not as famous, but some people from Dragon's Den actually went to Shark Tank, like the judges. So we went out, we signed up. We didn't think we were going to get at all accepted. And we auditioned. They're like, yeah, you're going to be shooting 1 month. And we're like, what? We don't even have a product. Okay. So we auditioned, and we had to, show them a prototype, so show them a rough sketch of what the app would look like. So they would think that it's actually live, and then in the background we're building the app, right? So again, we got into this, this rhythm of shooting ahead of time and then building in the background, which I think you have to do sometimes, and it's kind of risky, but that's something that works really well for me, and I think eventually you'll find maybe it works well for you as well. So we went on to the show. There was 1 million Canadians who watched the show. Yes, we were nervous, but eventually we did it. And the Dragons actually didn't invest in us. One of them offered us something, but it wasn't a good deal, so we said no. So then we are faced with balancing both sides of rejection. I want to talk about rejection. So when you're rejected by someone, there's sort of 2 sides to it. One is that they're probably right, so you should quit doing what you're doing. And the other side is that they're wrong. Screw them, I'm going to keep going. We were more on the side of screw them, I'm going to keep going. which I thought was good because we continued to persevere. There's things we knew about our product they didn't know. But, so what we did is, on the left over here is a viewing party. When the show actually aired across Canada, we had a big party. 500 people showed up. And we told them, hey, we didn't get a deal, but we really think we did a great job. And since the show was filmed, we've now built the app finally. Right? So it's kind of a triumphant moment for us to show people that an investor who thinks they know everything, if they say you're wrong, they're not always right with that. And we still built it. So there's some things that we wanted to prove they were wrong with. Now the side we should have listened to more with investors is over here. That's a diagram of our Google Analytics. It's kind of like, you guys know what that is when you can see how many people download your app, actions, and to the what. And these are very unrelated things. We had a wristband in a watch company. Then we had a event company. Then we had an app. And then we have an agency, which seem unrelated, but when you look back, it's very fluid. The way it evolved always connected to the why, right? So when you look back at things, you're going to realize that it all follows a pattern. And it's important for you to know what that pattern is as soon as possible, so you can be proactive in kind of guiding yourself forward. A little bit of an example here with someone who perhaps is more in your world, right? So Maria Montessori, I think she had a really similar path as well, right? She started a technical school, which at the time, and by the way, do you guys know who Maria Montessori is? Obviously a famous teacher, and she's got a method called the Montessori method. It's a way to help people learn differently, right? So she went to a technical school, which everyone at the time said, well, that's not for women, why are you doing that? So she kind of went against people's recommendations, did it anyways, right? Then she realized that she actually had more of a liking to go to medical school. Pretty different, right? But she breaks these two worlds together by first of all thinking, well, if I went to technical school, which is a really hard school, and I did well, I can go to medical school. I don't hear people say I can do it. She built confidence from that first school. She went to medical school, and here's she had her spark. She realized that people in need, people that had trouble learning, there was a different way to engage them, a different way to have them learn, right? And that's what she now calls the Montessori method. And she realized that to help people learn better, they had to learn in a very technical way. So she took her learnings from the technical school. By being in medical school, she could actually give people this new way of learning, right? And then she built the Montessori school. And this massive franchise, this huge concept that still today is being utilized. So if I had to think about what her why was, it's using technical skills to those in need, to further their development as an overlooked human being. Overlooked is people didn't think these kids who had trouble learning could really amount to anything, right? So even with, figures much more famous than me, I really believe that there's a process here in bridging worlds together and finding a spark and really following that. So to conclude on the topic of education, right? So quickly with me, how are we doing for time?
10 minutes left.
Okay, cool. So one thing I'm finding with my company today and what I do right now is I can't forever keep building new ideas on my company. It's exhausting, right? I need my staff to have the same attitude as me. I need my staff to be self-learners, get out there and experience life, not be afraid to make mistakes, and to be driven by motivators. And that's something that I do a lot now. I teach my staff, I train them rigorously, right? I train them a lot. Here's how you can have the same attitude as what I had to go through, hopefully with less pain than me because I've carved out some things for you, right? And that's something I'm doing a lot of today. So the concept of being an educator, a teacher, I think it's huge. When you're building a company, you need to empower others because you can't do it all yourself. Super important, right? I'm sure Marta, with the rest of the teachers, you have meetings and you all help each other. It's all about education. I think that's a really, really important point to talk about. I talked about two other businesses that I have, right? And these are businesses that have come from Tangled and come from my passion to help people find their spark and help them learn. One's called Life School. And I think that in Mexico, there's so much room and opportunity for everyone in this room to start teaching more of these topics. And I think these are topics that I did not learn in school. I only learned them when I was at Tangu because I had to survive, right? Goal setting, time management, personal branding, public speaking. These are things that I learned to do. You just do them. So the more that this can be part of the curriculum, I really implore everyone here, if you can start teaching these things to, well, not just yourself, but to people that, that are in your classroom, I think the world will be a lot more, not just entrepreneurial, but I think people are going to be better at solving problems. And I think the economy in Mexico is going to grow way faster, like it should in Canada and anywhere else. These are skills that the world needs now, especially as the robots start to come. Artificial intelligence, right? We need people to be thinking a lot more than doing. I think it's really important. Secondly, one thing that I've landed on recently is I'm seeing there's a huge gap in personal finance. I took a course on hypothecas, right? Mortgages. And in 1 week, I learned more in that class than I learned in my entire university career, learning about very practical things. I want to buy a house one day and have a family. How do I do that, right? So I learned in a week, and then I actually got my license to be a mortgage broker. And it's another company that I have now, right? Where I realized that to do well in that industry, you have to educate people on how to be good at personal finances, how to save towards the right mortgage, and how to get the best rate. So again, it's education. All these businesses are just about education. Eventually, that's what the customer wants. That's what your team needs, right? So again, it's a full circle around being an educator, which I think is what everyone here is doing, which I think is really amazing. So look, to conclude, you got to remember your superpowers, right? Your creativity. These are two awesome heroes from Mexico. There's a lot of them. These are two that are especially important to me. I want you to think about what are some values that you have as a Mexican or from wherever you're from, right? That really can help you drive your creativity and help you influence other people in other countries. Super important. Again, I think Mexico has some things that Canada and the US and everywhere else does not have. So really think about those instead of maybe being embarrassed about them. Think of those as extremely important assets, especially now. So, full circle. We talked about a lot. I'm grateful you guys were listening, for most of the time at least. The first thing is to look within your values and your culture. Very important. So as I did that, I went to Barcelona. I met new people. I experienced new things, and I found my spark. Just from a bracelet. Very innocent, but that was step number one. After that, I came back to Canada, and I tried different versions of my event company and my app. Had a lot of highs, had a lot of lows. Basically got my ass kicked in many ways, right? I felt like really a lot of painful moments, but there's a formula that I like to think about is pain plus reflection equals progress, right? Pain plus reflection equals progress. The more you reflect on your pains, the better. And when I had that moment where I lost all my staff, I revisited my why. I came back to what's the thing I really care about, and that's the way I could reinvent what I was doing. So when you hit a wall, or there's a challenge anywhere, you've got to look inwards. You have nowhere else to go. What am I passionate about? What does the world need? How do I combine those two things together? And over time, of course, you're going to be refining your career path. So whether you start your own company or you become a teacher or any job that you create, you're going to have to constantly course correct. See the things that you like, things you don't like, and keep improving from that. It's not going to happen overnight. And yeah, lastly, no matter where you end up, what you're learning today at the school of being an educator, it's going to be the key to, honestly, I think any job. I don't care what job it is, whether a teacher or entrepreneur, a leader, you have to be good at communicating, inspiring, and educating. That's something that the world desperately needs now. So I'll leave it off with one final quote. This is me in Israel. And does anyone know who Jack Ma is? Right? Who is he? Yes. Yeah, so Alibaba, if you guys have Amazon stores, you probably ordered from Alibaba. So he's worth like $40 billion. And he's all about automation and making things efficient, right? And almost maybe displacing workers. But he said at the conference, he got an honorary doctorate that, well, there's IQ, right? There's EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. But then there's LQ. And one thing that machines cannot do is that humans have capacity to love. Right? It's to have empathy. It's to care about other people. It's to educate them and inspire them. Machines will never be able to do that. So if you're scared of machines taking over your jobs, you shouldn't be if you're of the attitude that what you have inside of you is your culture and your passion, your heart. That is something machines cannot do. And I thought that was really smart and I think really relevant. So think about it. Your biggest asset is right here. And so with that, I would love to stay in touch with you. You can follow me on Instagram, you can do Facebook, you can do LinkedIn, you can email me. If I can be of any help in your journey, I would love to. and I've been thinking a lot about expanding some of my businesses to Mexico, so I'm looking for partners. So with that, muchas gracias, le agradezco, un honor, y hasta la próxima. All right, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Look, if you made it this far, don't be shy. Leave a comment below. I really want to hear what you have to say. And lastly, do not forget to subscribe. You've just been watching Arrive and Thrive. See you next time.